Today we're going to talk about composite functions. Um, Basically, we have more than one function that we're going to be plugging into. It's kind of almost like a train. So we have f of g of x, which can also be written as f of g of x. That kind of open dot in the middle just means of. So these are two ways to write the same thing. So basically, if our pizzas are f of x and our pineapples are g of x, if we have f of g of x, we're going to take our pineapple and put it on our pizza. If we have g of f of x, we're going to take our pizza and put it on our pineapple. So basically, all we're going to do is the output of one function becomes the input for the next function. We're going to work them from the inside out or from the very right to left. So we're kind of going almost backwards than how we read. So we're going to quickly just kind of review how an input-output works before we start kind of working with the composite part of it. So if I have f of -6, that means I'm going to take this -6, that's my x value or input, and plug it into the f function. So that tells me the name I'm looking for, and that tells me what to plug in for my input or x. So my f function is -2x plus 1. We have -2 times -6 plus 1. And that's going to give me 13. Okay, so if your input's -6, your output would be 13. P of -4, I'm going to take -4 and plug it where x is in the p function this time. So my p function is 1 over x plus 2, but instead of x, I'm going to put -4. So that's going to be 1 over -2 or -1/2. So if my input's -4, my output is -1/2. This is both Algebra 1 material. This is where we're going to get into our composite function. So we're going to do it twice. We have two functions, an f function and a g function. And we have to agree on the order because g is on the inside. We're going to do g of 2 first. My g function is x squared. So instead of x, I'm going to put 2, which is going to give me 4. Now I'm going to take that and I'm going to put it into my f function. So now I'm going to do f of 4. So take my output and then become the input of my next one. F is -2 times x, which is going to be 4 plus 1. So we're going to get -7. So if my input's 2, if I plug into g then f, my output would be -7. And of f of 5, so this is the same thing, it just looks a little different with the format. So again, we're starting with the inside or the last one. So we're going to go right to left. So we're going to start with f of 5, the one closest to the number. So -2 times 5 plus 1, which is going to give me -9. And I'm going to take that and I'm going to plug that into my n function. So I'm going to do n of -9. So the output becomes the next input, just like a train, you get them coupled together. My n function is square root, so we're going to have the square root of -9, which equals 3i. 5, we're going to switch it up again. This time it's f of m of x. So instead of actually putting a value in, we're just going to keep x there. This one's kind of easier. So I'm going to take my whole m1 and I'm going to put whatever m is into my f function. So my f function is -2. Then there's an x. Instead of putting x, though, I'm going to take my m function and put it there. So that's 1/2 x cubed. And I'm going to finish up my f function, which is plus 1. And now I'm going to sit here and I'm going to simplify. So I plugged it in and I got negative x cubed plus 1 when I simplified. For 6, it's g of f of x. So again, it's going to have x's in the end, so I'm going to be just one number. So I'm going to figure out my g function, and I'm going to start writing that down because I'm going to plug the whole f function into my g function. My g function is x squared. So I'm going to put parentheses. I'm going to put an f function inside those parentheses. My f function was negative 2 x plus 1. We're squaring the whole thing because that's g. We're going to sit here and we're going to simplify that as far as possible. So remember, when we have something square, that means we have 2 of those groups. So I would recommend writing them both out. And we're going to get 4x squared minus 2x plus 1. So 4x squared minus 4x plus 1. Okay, for my last two, I have h of f of x. So I'm going to take my h function. My h function is negative 1/2 x plus 1/2. I'm going to write everything down. Instead of writing the x, I'm just going to put parentheses there. And I'm going to put my f function inside of that. So my f function was negative 2x plus 1. So that's going to go in the parentheses. I'm going to simplify as far as possible. So distribute first. So I'm going to get positive x minus 1/2 plus 1/2. So we're going to get just positive x. And then for 8, I have 3 functions here, n, g, and f. And 3 is my original input. So I'm going to put 3 into my f function. My f function is negative 2x plus 1. So f of 3 is negative 2 times 3 plus 1. So that's going to give me negative 5. I'm going to take that negative 5 and I'm going to plug it into my next one, which is g. So I'm going to have g of negative 5. So remember, my output becomes my next input. So it's going to be negative 5 squared because that's my g function. My g function is x squared. So that's going to be positive 25. And then I have this n here, so I'm going to do it one more time. I'm going to do n of 25 because my output becomes my next input. My n function is the square root of x. I'm going to do the square root of 25, which is 5. We can also do these with tables. Tables and graphs are, I think, a little bit easier. There's less work to do, but you do have to match them up. So we're going to start on the G one. I'm going to look for the input of 0. So there's G, input 0, my output's 4. So G of 0 is 4. And that's going to become the input for my f function. So let me do f of 4. I look in my f table. 4 in the input becomes negative 7 for the output. So my answer here is just negative 7. So we're just following the steps. For 12, it says g of f of 6. So this time we're going to start on the f side. And have an input of 6. The input of 6 is 4. I'm going to take my 4. I'm going to go on the G side because now I'm going to do G of 4. My output becomes my input. So I look at the input side. 4 goes to 7. So my final answer here is 7. For 13, I'm going to do f of g of x. So basically, I'm just going to see which ones will come out to be nice. So 0 goes to 4, 4 goes to negative 7. So I have 0, negative 7. And then 2 goes to 2, but I don't have a 2 over here, so that's not 1. 4 goes to 7, I don't have a 7. 6 goes to 3, and then 3 goes to negative 1. So I'm just seeing which ones have a match. But then for g of f of x, I'm going to start in the f1. So 3 goes to -1, no -1. 4 goes to -7, no -7. 5 goes to 0, and then 0 goes to 4. So it's 5, 4. I don't really care about the middles. I just care about where I start and where I end up. 6 goes to 4, and there's a 4 to 7. So 6 to 7. Again, the 4s kind of almost cancel out. I don't care about the middle, just the very start and the very end. So we're going to do another one. F of g of 0. So I'm going to start in the G1. I find 0. 0 goes to 0. And then we're going to do f of 0. And f of 0 goes to -4. Now I have g of f of 3. So I'm starting the f1. F of 3 goes to 2. And then g of 2 goes to 4. Then we're going to kind of just see what matches up. So f of g of x, I start in the G1, I go to the f. 0 goes to 0, and then 0 goes to -4, so it's going to be 0, -4. 1 goes to 1, there's no 1s. 2 goes to 4, there's no 4s. 3 goes to 9, there's no 9s. There's only one of them that kind of maps. I'm going to do g of f of x. I'm going to start in the f1 this time. 0 goes to -4, no -4. 2 goes to 0, 0 goes to 0. So we're going to have 2, 0. 3 goes to 2, and 2 goes to 4. So we're going to have 3, 4. 6 goes to 8, but there's no 8. So this one, 2 maps to 0, and 3 maps to 4. We can do the same thing on graphs. On graphs, we're not going to do like the whole function necessarily. We're just going to do specific points. So remember, the input of one becomes the output of one becomes the input of the next. So if I start with g of 1, I'm going to look at my g1. I'm going to find 1 on the x-axis and figure out what the y value would be. So that'd be 3. That output now becomes my next input. So I'm going to do f of 3. I'm going to find 3 on my x-axis on the f, and then find the y value, which is -2. So the answer here would be -2. F of g of 1 is -2. F of g of -1, so we're going to start -1 on the g, on the x-axis for the g, that's 1. That's going to become the input for my next f function. So we're going to do f of 1. So I find 1 on the f-axis, and that's 2. So that would be my answer. F of g of -1 is 2. Now we're going to kind of do g of f of 0. So I find 0 on the f, and that y value is 1. So that's now going to become the input for my next g1. So I'm going to do g of 1, which is 3. We already found that. So the answer of g of f of 0 is 3. We're going to do one more, g of f of 3. So I'm going to find 3. We already know that's 2. We're going to do g of -2. We find -2, and that's 0. Okay, you have a few to try, and then you can check your answers. So I would like you to try these next 6 and check your answers using the key just to make sure you understand it before you try the required classwork.